Thank you for watching this video. Subscribe to this channel. This video will be a rant about dual citizenship or dual nationality. There are many countries that prohibit dual citizenship. And let me make this image larger because here you can see which nations prohibit it. The gray countries don't permit any nationals of theirs to have dual citizenship. Well, the countries in orange do permit it under certain circumstances, and those circumstances are exceptional. For example, people with a Dutch nationality, they're not permitted to take another nationality, because if this happens, they may lose their Dutch citizenship overnight. But I believe they're now amending that law. But okay, why am I talking about dual citizenship? This is not a political video. I'm not making a statement for or against dual citizenship. I'm not taking a stance in it. So I'm not forcing politics on you here. I'm using this discussion of dual citizenship to teach you something spiritual. But I'm using a concrete example of a debate that's going on to illustrate it. And I often give illustrations in my videos. Alright, I don't want you to keep looking at, how do I say it? I don't want you to keep looking at, well, boring passports all the time, so I'm going to close this down. And this is my background, this image I've purchased a while ago. Now you see sunshine in the background over here with green pastures. Okay, so let me continue. Dual citizenship. Some people say it shouldn't be allowed. Now, what is citizenship to begin with? Okay, let's say you were born in a territory, and that territory is called Japan, the Empire of Japan. Because you're born there, you have Japanese nationality. That implies that the Japanese government, those that rule the territory of Japan, they have certain obligations towards you, but in exchange, you have obligations towards them also. So they grant you certain unconditional rights, but there are also conditional rights you receive in exchange for duties. For example, you have the right to receive legal assistance in foreign countries if you get in trouble from the Japanese embassies, but in exchange, you are obliged to conduct in a manner that does not dishonor Japan's interests. So that's citizenship. Or let's say that you married someone from Estonia. Because you have an Estonian spouse now, let's say you are from, let me say, Brazil, you can now apply for Estonian citizenship. You can get an Estonian passport, you become a naturalized Estonian. The Estonian government may require you to give up your Brazilian nationality, which includes citizenship, though to conflicts of interest, which maybe Brazil has maybe the government of Brazil has certain stances that are opposed to the Estonian interests. So it depends upon the country. When it comes down to it, citizenship is a contract based on obligations, restrictions, and rights and privileges between a state, a government, and an individual. So in principle, you can get as many citizenships if you want. So that doesn't matter. I mean, it's still morning now, so forgive if I'm not that fluent, but I'll continue. So why is there so much conflict when it comes to citizenship? Okay, let me give an illustration to you. And later in the video, I'll explain what the spiritual significance of it is. Let's say that you are born in Estonia. Okay, I'm just taking a country, Estonia. And you dated a Russian girl. You didn't marry her yet, but you found out you could get Russian citizenship very quickly. So you did, because you thought, I'm going to marry a Russian, so might as well take Russian citizenship for in case I'm in Russia. I mean, it's a neighbor country, so you didn't think much about it. So now you are an Estonian, you have the Estonian passport, and you also have a Russian passport. Then you marry your Russian fiance, and you both live in Estonia. Your wife only has a Russian passport. You have both. Then one day, suddenly, you are invited to a business conference in St. Petersburg, Russia. As a Russian citizen, you are permitted, or you are permitted to invest in a new industrial zone in Russia. So you think, well, I have the Russian passport. Let's go for it. You're happy, you're excited, you do it, and you also have shares some in businesses in St. Petersburg. And you think, great. If you didn't have the Russian passport, you were not entitled to do that. But here's the trick. Those people that invited you were not government agents. Those were criminals. Because in that part of Russia, there are many criminals active also in the business world. And because there are so many, they are tolerated, but they are active. And you had one of those criminal gangs that wanted to get a hold in Estonia for the criminal activities. So they were thinking how they would do it. They couldn't find any Estonian that was willingly to work for them because they had a bad reputation in Russia and also outside of it. Even when you worked under other names, people still would find something that wasn't right. And then one of those gang members, who was also working at a municipality, found out that there was a woman from that municipality that married someone from Estonia. That married a Russian in Estonia. And there's a Russian minority in Estonia also. But then that gang member at that municipality found out that this Estonian has both the Russian and the Estonian nationality. So the gang member went and told it to his superiors. And they came up with a plan to lure that guy with a dual nationality to Russia. Because they figured out he wanted a Russian passport so he could have benefits in Russia also. So if you invite him to a business conference, by the way, that business conference was not a criminal thing, it was a real conference. If you invite him to it and offer him a good deal, he'll be glad. And he will think, well, dual nationality is worth it. So that guy, let's call him, let me think of a name. Let's call him Peter. It's an English name, not Estonian, but just for example's sake, Peter. Peter, who has both the Estonian and Russian passport, he went to St. Petersburg, he got involved in trade over there. He was happy, but it were criminals that lured him over there. And at the same time, under Peter's name, as a Russian, they were opening bank accounts for money laundering. So 5 years later, the Russians sent an arrest warrant to the European Union because Estonia is part of the European Union, so Russia had to deal with Brussels, and the arrest warrant was for an Estonian who also had a Russian nationality. Okay. I hope I said right. So Peter's thinking, what? Why am I arrested? And here's the thing, there was already tensions between the EU and Russia on the diplomatic scene. And now this also happens. So what happens now, Peter is now involved also in a diplomatic role between the EU as a states union and Russia as a national federation. Did he want all of this? No. He was thinking, I'm marrying a Russian wife, so I may be involved in Russia also, so let me have that passport also. And with some trick, he got the passport. But here's the thing, he never looked any further. Because Peter had no ill will. Peter was not into criminality. He had no intention to exploit Russia or anything like that. He was pure on his behalf. But because he now had a Russian passport, not only was he enabled in participating in Russia's affairs, but Russians were also enabled to participate in his affairs. Why? He had citizenship of Russia, so he was bonded to Russia because of it. And now also the people with bad intentions in Russia could be involved with him. But he didn't look that far. So in this story, eventually it was found out that Peter was innocent, but nevertheless, it caused him and his family a lot of trouble. Now, this example here may be a bit extreme, I know, okay? But I use extreme examples to point it out to you. Now, why am I using the debate of dual citizenship as a parable? Because when it comes to the spiritual, it's not the same, because there are no countries in the spiritual realm. But think of it this way. When you are in agreement with Christ, you operate in the positive, you operate in the supernatural, and you're closely involved with people that are not operating in the supernatural, but they are worldly minded. That means they're negative minded. You're unequally yoked with them, and because you are unequally yoked with them, they have a hold on you. They don't have a complete hold on you. They don't have control over you, but they have a hold on you somewhere. And look at it this way. They are negative minded. They don't have faith. They don't operate in the supernatural. For example, let's say that one day a child is sick. Now, you that walk by faith, you decree health, supernatural health. And of course, the child can go to the hospital and all of that, but you rely upon the supernatural. So you have hope. You have an expectation there beyond the natural. Their only expectation is they find a good hospital with good medical assistance to help the child. So there's nothing wrong with them wanting good medical care for the child, and there's nothing wrong with bringing a child to a hospital. There's nothing wrong with that. But that's the only thing they can rely upon. And they can't do anything themselves, so they are in despair if the child is about to die. But you that walk by faith, you have expectation. But let's give an illustration now. That there's a kid in the neighborhood, in the village, that is sick, has a terminal illness. And the people around don't have faith, they operate in the negative. What happens now? They will go to a hospital. And when the doctors say, we're sorry, we can't do anything for the child anymore, the child will die within a few months, the cancer has grown too much, those people are sad, that's understandable. But now they want to know why this happens to a child. And that's understandable also. Because they're negative minded, they don't look any further. And then they see you, as a believer, you walk by faith. And then they'll begin to ask you, how can your God allow this to happen to a child? Huh? And let's say they ask you to pray for the child. And you do it because you walk by faith. But here's the thing. In the spirit world, let me say this is what's going on in the spirit world. That child is sick, that's true. Where does that sickness come from? Here's the thing. Those parents, when they were dating, the relatives couldn't stand them dating. But they dated anyway and they married. So you have both families that are hating their marriage. And all that negative contention, and generally speaking, affected the family. And this affected also the household, that the husband and the wife begin to fight with each other. And now you have those children who grew up in this contention. And outside of the house, when the children malfunctioned, because you cannot well function in such a toxic environment, especially as a kid, the people around blame the children and also treat the children badly because couldn't stand the disrespectful attitude of the children. The people outside just cared only about being validated, being treated well. They didn't care about the condition of other people. So the selfishness of the community and of those two families caused a lot of negativity in the household. And this negativity affected one of those children, and all that negative energy caused the immune system of that child to malfunction, and though that malfunctioning of that immune system, physically, cancer developed. And because the negative energy kept on coming, the cancer grew. So it's the whole community that made that child sick. But they don't want to look at the bigger picture to see what's going on, because then they need to admit their contribution and their stonewalling and their own darkness. They don't want that. There's a manifestation, there's a fatal consequence of their negativity happening there, but they can't see it. And let's say you pray for the child, but the child dies. Is it your fault? No. You walk by faith. But here's the thing. Those people that asked you to pray for the child never had faith in the first place. They only asked you to pray for the child, not because they trust, but out of unbelief. It was a form of accusation. So when the child dies, what's going to happen? They're going to blame you and your God for it. Even though the child became ill and even died because of their negative meditation. But if you would mention this to them, man, they'll turn on you. They'll come to kill you. Look, that's what I mean. People that refuse to agree with Christ, look, there's a difference between being born somewhere where you never receive knowledge of Christ, nor of salvation, and you can't know any better. That happens. Okay? But there's a difference between not being able to know any better, and because you don't know better, you can't operate better, and refusing to operate better. The first group needs deliverance. The second group you need to be delivered from. And there are a lot of people walking out there that you need to be delivered from. Because their refusal to walk by faith, to operate in supernatural, their pride is making them heavy. It's generating a lot of negativity inside and around them. And this attracts demons, so they're negatively charged. They're like a ticking time bomb. So let's say now that let's say you're Peter, you're from Estonia, but this time I'm not going to use the example of a passport, but you are a believer, Peter, and you have some people around you that refuse to walk by faith, just hold on to their unexamined expectations. They're negative. No, and they are breeding negativity because they keep holding on to stuff they know they need to let go of. But you have no ill will towards them, you treat them kindly, and all of that. Then one day, one of them gets fired from the job. Why is he fired from the job? Because he had this negative heaviness with him, and the boss noticed that it affected his co-workers, so the boss fired him. So now, that guy has lost his job. And you are a believer. You still have your part-time job, but you also have your investment in other businesses, so you have your income. So one day the individual asks you to help him out, and you think, why not? I have a lot of money on the bank, so here's 400 euros. Use it. You didn't even ask money back, you didn't loan it, you just gave it. That individual was fired from the job, soon gets another job. But that 400 euros, he spends it on his relief seeking. He is relief centered, so he is seeking relief with the cash. So he goes to the club or to the bar or wherever he goes. And let's say that you, Peter, help him out once in a while financially, and you don't even mind because you're operating in abundance. One day, there are people, let's say that this buddy of yours is called Frank. Okay, I don't know, I know these are not Estonian names, but I don't know many Estonian names, so okay, that the guy's name is Frank. Frank one day is followed by people that are offended by him. They wanted to beat him up. They're upset with him. Why they're upset? Because they noticed that this guy who lost his job, who now has a job that pays less, still has some cash to spend. And he goes to the clubs, and because he spends at the club, there are women giving attention to him. And there are other guys that go to the club that never get attention from those women, and now they're upset with him. And then he found out, those men that are after Frank, they found out that Frank is financially supported by a guy called Peter. And they found out Peter is a businessman, besides having his job. So those men that are desperate to beat up Frank now turn their attention to Peter. Because they think if that Peter did not support this Frank, we wouldn't be so upset. Instead of looking at themselves and seeking deliverance and seeking help, they now blame it all on Peter. So now you have a group of men that began to stalk Peter, and they even look him up on social media and try to act out against him. And one of them even becomes so desperate that he begins to follow Peter every time Peter leaves his home. How did this came to being? How did this end up so far? Here's the thing. That Frank was into the negative. He kept on going into the negative. He kept holding on to the world. And because of that, negative-minded people had easy access to him. Demons had easy access to him also. So because of this, when Frank was in trouble and Peter helped him out, Frank was empowered. But Frank uses empowerment in the world. And he got resistance from the world. But now, where does the empowerment come from? From Peter. So who are those angry people going after? Peter. So by Peter being so involved with someone that holds onto the world, those negative, angry, obsessed people of the world now had access to Peter also. They did not have a direct access to Peter, but because of that Frank, Satan now used Frank to bring negative attention to Peter. You see where this is going? So look, I'm not saying here that if you have someone that needs financial help and you're able to help someone that shouldn't do it. Okay, I'm not saying that. Neither am I saying that if you see a homeless individual on the street that you cannot help him out if it is responsible to do so. If it's responsible. Just look at the bigger picture. The word doesn't say not to be unequally yoked with unbelievers just for poetry. In this case, this Peter had no ill intentions. He was just doing his job. He was a businessman with his shares in other businesses. He took care of his family. He didn't bother anyone else. And there were times he even gave to some charities, so he did nothing wrong. But there were people in the world that were wrong. They didn't want to admit they were wrong. And they now had access to Peter. And they used that access to blame someone for their negativity so they could be relieved. Instead of going after Frank, that in their eyes robbed their women from them, which is a very silly way of thinking, instead of that, they now turned on Peter. And that's what you need to understand, believer. When negative-minded people in the world need someone to blame, and there is an unbeliever who's obviously involved in their bad situation, and there's a believer over there who has nothing to do with the situation, then often those negative-minded people, they will prefer to attack the believer instead of the unbeliever. Why? Because they're negative-minded, and you are Christ-minded. That's already a conflict. And especially if you are walking by faith and you have an effect around you, and people benefit from this effect, but let's say that the people that benefit are people that those negative-minded people can't stand. Now, they will try whatever, they will come up with any type of excuse to blame you as a believer. What happened when Christ was at Pilate, and Pilate offered the option between Christ or Barabbas, who was a robber? The people preferred the robber and to crucify Christ. Believer, I'm not being extreme here. I'm just telling you as it is. As a believer, when negative-minded people of the world, look, everyone in the world that's not born again is in darkness. Okay? But to hold on to unbelief, that's being negative-minded. So I hope I've explained that clearly now. There's a difference between ignorance because you can't know any better, So, and holding on to, not wanting, holding on to ignorance, holding on for, there's a difference between not having knowledge and refusing knowledge. Now, those that refuse knowledge because they want to hold on to their way of seeing things, they want to hold on to their unexamined expectations. Such people are negative-minded, and negative-minded people, when the waste energies are so high and things are escalating, and when that happens, they'll look for a target to release it upon. And I'm telling you, there are child molesters out there, there are corrupt politicians, corrupt judges, there are so many actors of the world themselves they can go after. They won't. They will either go after someone who can't defend him or herself of the world, or if there's a believer, they'll go after the believer. That's how it works. So that's why I'm telling you, do not be unequally yoked with unbelievers. You can talk with people, you can go to some extent, you can go to a party or a wedding with people that don't want to agree with Christ. You can help them out when you can. They may be colleagues of yours or your employer or employees, but don't walk with them. Because when you walk with them, you are taking their baggage with you, because they carry baggage. Mentally, paranormally, they have baggage. And Satan has easy access to them because of their baggage. So when you walk with them, they're taking their baggage with you. Because remember, they don't want to examine their expectations. So not only are you affected by their baggage, demons can bring danger to you through their baggage. And often you're not even aware they have baggage, because often people can hide their baggage very well, but they are carrying it with them. So again, don't go to Facebook and just unfriend a lot of people that you think that you don't need. I'm not talking about this narcissistic, I don't need certain people attitude. Just keep your distance and lower your contact when you notice that people are negative-minded. That is what I wanted to remind you of. And I've used the example of dual citizenship to explain this. You may not have any bad intentions, but others may have, and they may exploit that enablement you have. For example, that Estonian also has a Russian passport. There were Russians that bad intentions towards him, and they used his Russian passport to drag him inside. Look, this video was not a political statement concerning dual citizenship. I've just used the the debate as a parable. Okay? So don't go out there and say that I am against dual citizenship or anything like that. You've listened to the video, you understand what I'm saying now. Do not be unequally yoked with unbelievers. Well, that being said, agree with Christ. Have a great 2018 and be at peace.